Number 10. H. Holmes. Holmes is often credited as America's first documented serial killer. His body count is heard to be around 27, but that's just what he confessed to. His victim count is rumored to be around 200. A number that high is just ridiculous. I don't even get that in Call of Duty. He did this by building a hotel in a popular part of Chicago in the 1890s. He also designed it to be a labyrinth of rooms without windows, making it very, very hard to escape. Except for Holmes, who was the only one who knew the building layout because he constantly hired and fired builders while having it built, so not one person knew the layout in its entirety. Some of the most odd features of the hotel were doors that could only be opened from the outside, a safe that could fit a person inside, and a chute that he could dump bodies into from the upper floors right into the basement, where 2 very large furnaces and a massive supply of flesh-eating acid was kept. Number 9. The Winchester House. This has to be one of the weirdest buildings in the US. It's home to the widow of gun magnate William Winchester, named Sarah Winchester. She believed that the ghosts of people killed with her husband's guns would come to haunt her, so in turn she built a mansion in North California to protect herself. It also took 36 years to build, but not for the reasons you think. She thought that keeping it in flux would keep her at bay with the spirits. Most of the construction made no sense though. There were things like windows that were looking inside the house instead of outside, and stairs and doors that led nowhere. It started being a tourist attraction in 1923, 5 months after she died of heart failure at the age of 83. Number 8. Elisa Lam. The still unexplained story of Elisa Lam has gone viral lately because of its very mysterious nature of her death. Elisa Lam was a 21-year-old student that was reported missing while staying at the Los Angeles Cecil Hotel. Her body was discovered in the water tanks of the hotel after guests had complained that the water tasted funny. Not something I'd find funny in any circumstance. Anyways, the last recorded moments of her life will be put on the screen for you to see. Just watch it. Every time I've watched it, it's given me chills down my spine. On a side note, when the autopsy was done, there was absolutely no signs of drugs or alcohol in her system, so it seems so odd that she would be acting like this. Number 7. The Silent Twins. 2 twins named Jennifer and June Gibbons were British twins. Their bond was ostracizing and dangerous as it brought them together, away from the world and right into trouble. When they were children, they spoke their own made-up language and barely spoke to anyone else. Sometimes their love for each other even fell apart from time to time, which caused them to try and murder each other. When they got older, they went on a spree of arson and theft that resulted in them being labeled as psychopaths. They later were brought to Broadmoor Hospital for the criminally insane at the tender age of 14. Later on in their life, they reached out to a journalist named Marjorie Wallace. They showed her a very remarkable sense of self-awareness, admitting they could never be individuals as long as the other lived. Later on, Jennifer told Marjorie Wallace that she was going to die, and she did just that when they were sent to a lower security facility. It is said that she died of a heart condition. Number 6. Death in the Dyatlov Pass. A passage in Russia's Ural Mountains where the conditions are so harsh that its nearby peak is called Dead Mountain because of the lack of wildlife there. In 1959, 9 skiers went to this peak, but they never returned. The discovery of the search party was a tent ripped in 2 pieces with all the belongings left behind, even with the deathly cold temperatures. They followed a trail of shoeless footprints to a forest and found 5 of the 9 bodies, with some of them having underwear still on. The rest of the bodies were found 2 months afterwards when the snow that covered them melted. The thawed bodies had more clothing on, but were not believed to have died from hypothermia. The 4 thawed bodies had some strange injuries that included major skull trauma, major chest fractures, and missing tongues. The equivalent impact of damage done to their bodies was the same as a high-speed car crash. This has spawned many theories about their horrifying deaths. Number 5. Bella Elmore. An aspiring opera singer named Cora Crippen with the stage name Bella Elmore was the unhappy wife of the homeopathic doctor Holly Crippen. Unfortunately, she isn't known only for her theatrical performances, but the odd circumstances of her death. The Crippins were also known to have arguments, most of them being in public. After an argument they had at a party they threw on New Year's Eve in 1910, she oddly enough went missing. When questioned, her husband said that she went to California, but her friend Kate Williams, a pro-strong woman, smelled something fishy, and headed to Scotland Yard. Things got even more weird as Dr. Crippen had his young and pretty secretary, Ethel Neave, to move in. What's even worse is she started wearing Cora's clothes, jewelry, and mink coat. When the Scotland Yard showed up at Crippen's house to investigate Cora's death, he was mysteriously gone, but the one thing they found was a dismembered torso in the cellar. When the Scotland Yard chased them down, they found them on a ship sailing to Canada and were arrested immediately upon their arrival. Number 4. The Doodler. The Doodler is the name for an uncaught serial killer who terrorized the gay community in San Francisco's Tenderloin area in the 1970s. From January 1974 to September 1975, he was credited with murdering 14 gay men and assaulting 3 others. The reason he got the name the Doodler is the way he would lure the men out of the gay clubs to attack him. He would begin his mission at a bar and draw a portrait of his victim, and then if that led them outside, things would get ugly real quick, with the Doodler stabbing his victims to death in a horrific manner. One thing that was quite odd about the Doodler never getting caught is that all of his victims were closeted homosexuals who didn't want to come out of the closet to testify. According to the rumors, one was a popular entertainer and another was a diplomat, but neither of them would testify if it meant putting themselves in the public eye as a homosexual individual in a society where there is severe homophobia and gay hate, where their families could be harmed because of their sexual orientation. Unfortunately, the Doodler's identity is still unknown. Number 3. Doggy suicides at Overtown Bridge. There is a bridge called the Overtown Bridge in Dumbarton, Scotland. It has been described as picturesque, overlooking a rolling valley and rich with vibrant forests, but it has a very odd legacy of canine suicide. In the past 50 years, 50 dogs have leapt to their death, oddly enough without warning, over the side of the bridge, with most of the dogs falling to their death from more than 50 feet. And even more odd, all of the leaps have been from the same part of the bridge, the right side between its 2 final parapets. I know this sounds even crazier, but all of the dogs have been breeds with long noses like Labradors or Retrievers. Many people say the bridge is haunted, even a man who threw his infant son off the bridge to his death in 1994. Apparently, his reasoning for this is because he thought his son was the Antichrist. One cool fact about the name of the bridge is in Celtic, Overtown means the thin place. Apparently, this is where the world and the next one are very close. Number 2. Who put Bella in the wych elm? A persistent mystery about a murder that happened in Hagley, England on April 19th in 1943. It served as a boogeyman tale for decades for the citizens of Hagley, England. 4 boys trespassed into the privately owned Hagley Woods for a hunting session. When climbing a tree, they found a human skeleton stuffed into the trunk. Even though they didn't want to get caught for poaching, they called the police and the body was excavated, causing people to ask more questions than getting answers. It was the body of a young woman the public took to calling Belladonna or Bella. They found her whole body except for a hand buried nearby. This story couldn't be more creepy. Number 1. The most haunted house in America. This could be the inspiration for American Horror Story Murder House, as the things going on in the Congelier mansion will send chills down your spine. The mansion was once located on 1129 Ryde Avenue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The mansion had its beginnings of bad history with Charles Wright Congelier, his wife Lydia, and their servant named Essie. The Congelier marriage was discontinued in winter 1871 when Lydia caught Essie and Charles red-handed. She then proceeded to fatally stab Charles and decapitate Essie. The creepy part is this is only the beginning. In 1900, another person who lived in the home afterwards, named Dr. Adolf C. Brunrichter, caused an explosion in the house that broke windows and caused police to come. They found his grotesque experiments that involved reanimating the heads of dead young women. Even more creepy, there were stories of weeping ghosts coming about, which drew Thomas Edison himself, who came to the house to investigate. He oddly tried using one of Brunrichter's experiments to contact the dead. Thankfully, the house was completely destroyed in 1927 when the Equitable Gas Company destroyed some of Pittsburgh.